We live by the currents and plan by the tides, and we follow the sun. Why I love North Carolina seems to be a simple enough question to ask, but a much more difficult question to answer. My family is from North Carolina, and the one thing that we all have always had in common is the love for the water. From as far back as I can find, the common denominator has always been the waters of North Carolina. The tides are the most amazing thing to me. They mesmerize me in their melodic, rhythmic repetition. It's like a well-synced orchestra. A little something you can depend on every day and night to bring about a change and a fresh new start. It's amazing to me that every bit of coastal life depends on the tides, from the birds feeding, plants growing, to fish spawning, to baby turtles desperately trying to make their way safely back to the ocean. They're forever changing, and they never stop, and they never will stop. You see, I simply love North Carolina's history. I guess it's not just my family's history, it's just so much more. There's so many families that can trace their heritage back to the Revolutionary War. I just find that fascinating. I was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina, at Cape Fear Hospital. During the good old years, I grew up in Little Washington, or as the locals like to call it, we like to call it the original Washington. Washington is the quintessential coastal community. It's nestled beautifully right there on the Pamlico River. It really hasn't changed much over its life. I guess that's really what makes it so special and unique to me. Along these banks of the Pamlico is really where my father showed me that being on the water and the love that it could always bring to me. I guess his father showed him, and I hope to pass it on to my children someday. I remember growing up and learning to fish and to sail and to explore and appreciate everything that the outdoors and nature had to provide. I grew up looking at pictures and listening to stories about my father and grandfathers fishing in the shores of Shackelford Banks and Portsmouth Island and the Roanoke River, Morehead City, Ocracoke Island, and all the creeks and rivers in between. And I guess I always found myself, and still do, and I love rummaging through old countless pictures and old 8mm films from the 60s from my grandfathers and my father and their friends and family, and all those moments that they had once shared. I never really knew my grandfathers that well because they passed away when I was really too young to appreciate them. But I think perhaps their greatest gift that they could live to me or pass down were the stories of and the video footage in this video that you see here. I guess it's really what began the foundation of my passion for the sea and the coast of North Carolina. I really attribute that to all of them. I'm so drawn to the sea, and perhaps it was embedded in me. The moment I was born, I began exploring the Outer Banks as soon as I could drive. I reminisce about traveling there with friends, and I know that now that I will never live too far away from North Carolina ever again. The draw of the sea is absolutely unexplainable. From the mysterious sunken legends off our coasts, our classic fishing villages, to the countless commercial fishing boats lined all throughout the coast, to the uniqueness of its history that North Carolina strives to hold on to from years and years ago. But I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that you can travel somewhere in North Carolina, a place that you've been your whole life, and you can travel there and feel like you've been there for the first time, and that's really the magic of this state. You see, I moved away from North Carolina when I was in my early 20s, and every year that I was gone, the desire to come home grew with every hour that I was away. I mean, don't get me wrong, the North was a unique experience within itself, but I knew North Carolina was where my home was, and perhaps I needed to live somewhere else to really appreciate North Carolina and what it has and what it is. Home is where the heart is, and there's really nothing more closer to the truth than that. After many years up north, I returned home to North Carolina, and I've settled in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I'm happily married to an amazing woman. And maybe it's one of the reasons I was so eager to try to tackle this project, perhaps a little memento for me to leave behind when I've caught my last fish or taken my last photo. Wilmington is perfectly placed in southeastern North Carolina and has the beautiful Atlantic Ocean on one side and the mysterious Capefield River on the other. There's truly not a more perfect place to live in my eyes. It's a wonderful place to call home, and I'm truly thankful to live here. I'm in the medical field by trade, but my passion is photography and videography, filming the world around me. Maybe it's the stories back in the day that have created this love, or perhaps the stories that I'm creating now and will have for my children and grandchildren. Photography kind of gives me a path of my life, I guess a trail, like you could say. I love looking back through all the photos and reliving that moment at that time, and it brings it back so crystal clear, as if it were yesterday. And that's the power that the sea provides, and she kind of gives me my template. And there's really not a better place than that to do that than North Carolina. I guess there's something pretty special about living somewhere that inspires you. Traveled all around the world and seen so many different things, and I still get so excited to simply just come home. I mean, how many of us can really say that? Being close to family and friends is all I can ever really ask for, whether it's fishing with my buddies at our favorite fishing holes, or taking a little boat ride down to Bald Head Island, or simply relaxing with friends on the beaches of Masonboro Island. I've never really felt that being on the water was a waste of time. You learn so much every day. I mean, what more do you want? We have the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains to our west, classic Outer Banks to our east, and the unique inner banks that I always will love the most. The waters of North Carolina can be an unforgiving teacher. They can teach you humility, teach you patience, teach you emotional highs and extreme lows. It can all really be taught to you in the same day. They always say that if you're lucky enough to live by the sea, then you're lucky enough. I guess I suppose that is right.